Okay, I posted a picture just before this to show you guys the blanket that I'm going to talk about today. It's a really simple blanket to do. It's one of the first blankets I did on the loom, and what I'd actually used was the long blue straight loom. This loom came in a 4-pack, this is the biggest, and then there was green, yellow, and pink. So if you have that set, then you're going to obviously use the biggest one. If you have a different set, you're going to obviously use the biggest one out of that. So to do this, what you need is obviously your yarn, and because I changed colors in the blanket, if you want to change colors, obviously get those ready too. Now, if you want to keep track of how long it is, you're going to want something like a row counter, similar to what I have, which is actually, this is supposed to be used for sports, but this is a simple row counter I got. Just like that, boom, you're all set. If you want to keep track, if you're changing colors, that you want like 10 rows of one color, then you want to switch it over, do 10 rows of another, it's great to have some little tracker. Something like this, or putting dashes on a piece of paper, whatever's going to work for you. You're obviously going to need the normal hook. You're going to need the crochet hook. You're going to need your scissors. Excuse me. There's the crochet hook. Now what you can do, I'm going to show you how to do this using one strand of yarn. But typically you're probably going to be using 2 strands at once because you're going to want the blanket a little thicker. And all I did for that blanket is I kept it very simple. It was just the E-wrap method through the whole blanket. Even when I switched colors, that's all I did. You can change that up yourself if you decide you want to do the purl stitch or any other stitch that you want to do. That is clearly up to you. But to do the one you saw me do, I had Karen Simply Soft that I had used in that. I'd used 2 strands of each color at once, and I used probably about a half a skein per each color, probably in each block that you saw. But I'm just going to use 2 different colors today just to simply show you how I did it. It's going to be a very simple tutorial, very much the basics, and just showing you the different techniques I use. So, and the other point to notice with that blanket is it does curl a little bit. I wish I had a sample in here to show you what I mean, but what it did is it curled on the edges a little bit because I only did the E-wrap method throughout the whole project, so it does curl unless you probably block it or something later. Or you can do what's called the garter stitch, which is knitting a row and then purling a row, and that will create an edge effect that won't curl as much. And you can do that through the whole row, which means using all of it, or you can decide maybe, do the whole row for the beginning, do maybe a few pegs over to kind of create like a border around the blanket of the garter stitch, and then end with the garter stitch. Again, using your any kind of stitch marker tracker to show you how many you've done. But to do the one that's in there, I'm just E-wrapping it. So it will curl, but at the same time, the blanket's going to get washed, it's going to get stretched. It eventually probably will lose some of that curling ability. So to get started, as I said, I'm only going to use 1 strand to show you how I did this. But again, depending on your size of yarn, this is simply Red Heart brand of yarn, so I would definitely need 2 strands, but again, I'm just using 1. If you did the Karen Simply Soft, you're going to need 2 as well. If you do like a Bernette baby blanket, then you're probably just going to need 1 strand. It does depend on the bulkiness of your yarn. This is a weight, what they call, if I can find it, a weight of 4, like on the back of the yarn is little diagrams like that, and over here it tells me that it's the size 4. That's one of the reasons I need to use 2 because of this. But another brand might have a 5, I believe, which means it's bulkier than that. So all you're going to do is get yourself some extra. If you're using a new skein, you're going to want to pull out some extra, so you're not, and then you're going to do your simple slip knot, which is, I'm wrapping both my fingers like that, holding the one in the back, bringing it forward, then bringing that back and forward again to create my slip knot. I'm placing it on the first peg and tightening it a little bit. Now, in the first video I did, I had this peg looped when I went around. I wouldn't do that. I would just keep yourself between this peg and that peg, going around the outside of the loom, back and forth. That's all you're going to do. Then you're going to grab your tail that you have left over, and you're going to just simply E-wrap it around. And this is all I did, is I'm just simply just wrapping it around the peg. The E-wrap method. And if you're holding it, you can kind of turn it as you're going, like holding it straight in front of you, and then you're wrapping it kind of towards you, and then you can kind of slowly turn it, and then wrap down. Until you get to that one peg that's on this side that matches the peg on the other side. Okay, So this last peg is wrapped. Now what you're going to do, excuse me, is you're going to take your string and you're going to work your way back the other way. However, you're not going to wrap the peg that's already wrapped right now. It's almost like skipping that peg, and first thing you want to do is push down the strands you have on there if they're going to be in your way when you go to rewrap the back the other way. You don't want anything to stop you from wrapping if you can do it faster. You just want to push everything down a little ways to give you room to put that other strand of yarn in. Okay, and then when you're ready, you're going to start back up. So if you look, I'm going to start back up wrapping. And if you look at what I did not wrap that first peg again. I went right to that one. I'm going to work my way all the way around, going back, wrapping it around. And it's really however you want to hold it, and just be careful that you don't lose your yarn, otherwise it's going to all come off. I've been there. And that's what mine did, is it came all the way off. Okay, so let's just go back down here and restart. And we're just rewrapping it around in the E-wrap method all the way back to our starting point. And that starting peg will get wrapped. Each time you go back and forth, there's going to be the one peg on the end that doesn't get wrapped as you're going around. So there's always going to be a peg that's going to have one or two strands depending on how many strands you started out with. So I'm just going right back around. Okay, and then I work my way up this side, pushing down the previous strand if I need to, and work my way right back up. If you notice your yarn getting tight, before you pull it out of the skein, just place your thumb or a finger against that so it doesn't pull off, and then reach and pull out some more yarn. That's what, so that you don't lose all that you've wrapped. Okay, we're back to the beginning. I'm going to wrap that around. Now the best thing to do is this peg does get wrapped. Remember, if you're looking at it, this one's going to have two, but because we started over here going back, that one only has one. And the best thing you can do now is use your little tool here and knit over that last peg you wrapped. That's going to help lock it in place so it doesn't make all of it unwrap. And then just go around and knit over the bottom loop over the top loop. If you've got two strands, make sure you get both strands and get them over the top. And that's all I'm doing, is I'm just knitting over the bottom strand over the top. It's hard to sometimes if you have yarn that wants to split apart, it makes it a little tricky. That's all I'm doing, is I'm taking that bottom strand and moving it over the top. So go ahead and finish that row doing that. That's all I do. And it can work out pretty fast. I think I did that blanket in about 4 or 5 days, and that's because I had enough time to work on it. And you should, as I said before, never judge how fast you loom knit by how fast somebody else does it. Some people are really fast at it, some people are slow. It all depends on the project you're working on. So just don't judge yourself by others. It's better to just kind of see how you can do it. And like I said, right here it's easier to show you that all I'm doing is I'm grabbing that bottom loop and knitting it over the top. And this is the method you can use throughout the whole blanket, even when you change colors. That's all I did for that blanket, was the E-wrap stitch all the way throughout it, even after I changed colors. So you can decide you want to do a little variety, and you can do purling, knitting, or whatever. If you, like I said, it may curl, but when you figure it's going to be washed and all that good stuff like that, some of the curling probably will go away. If not, you can do what I call the garter stitch, but I'm not talking about that now, just because I've had numerous requests to show how I changed the colors and stuff for that blanket, so I wanted to just take the time and just show you really quickly what's involved in when you change colors. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to use your first color for as long as you want, throughout the project, for so many rows, whatever you decide. Now you're at the point where you want to change colors. Now to change colors, all you're simply going to do, once I get back done with this row, I will show you. Okay, pretend that you're at the point you've already done excuse me, your first color for as long as you want. Make sure you push them down, and you're going to get ready to add your second color. You've gotten the first color again, down as far as you want. Now you're at the part where you want to know how to change the colors. And this part is pretty simple. Now because you're doing the E-wrap method, one side of your blanket will look one way, one side will kind of look a little different. So that's why sometimes if you do the garter stitch, it will give you more of a reversible fabric. But for that one I did, if you look at that video again, you can kind of see that one side looked a little different, and that's just because of just doing knitting. One side had the knitted side, and one side was a little different. But I still had a lot of people like that blanket, so that's what I love, is the creativity you can have. Okay, so we're going to push these down to make sure they're on my way. And again, you have already done the first color as long down or far down as you want. Now you want to change colors. This process is simple. All you're going to do is cut yourself a little tail so that you can take the little tail on this one, excuse me, and tie it to the end of your next yarn that you want to use. So just go ahead and snip off, like 1 or 2 inches. You don't need a lot. You're just going to be tying the next color on there. So we're done with the first color. So all I did was I cut the little tail, then I grabbed the other new yarn that I wanted to use, and I simply tied them together. You can tie it once, or you can tie it twice, however long you want to tie it. And you can tie it as close to that peg as you want, so that way the new color can be used. It's a little tricky to show you, but all I'm doing is I'm just tying them together, just so they have a little knot, to secure the new color to the old. Now, you're going to take all your strands, and you're going to wrap them around. I mean, if you want, you can trim that first color tail a little bit. I would also maybe put 2 knots in before you do that, but what you can do is just grab your tails and just go around. Or you can leave the one tail of the first color kind of out and only grab the tail of the second color, because what you can do later is you can hide this in the project. So it's up to you how you want to do it. But right now I'm just going to wrap them all. I'm going to leave that tail hanging, and I would fix it later. So now you're just working your way back. Again, this one won't get wrapped. You're going to move to the next one and go all the way over to the other side. And again, it's just the E-wrap. And that's all you're going to do. That's how you change your colors. And you can decide if you want to change the color on this side or on that side. It's up to you. Like I said, that blanket was a fairly simple blanket, fairly simple design that I did. There wasn't a lot to it. I hadn't known a lot of different stitches at that point, and I hadn't known about the curling and stuff that would have happened. But that's all you're going to do, is you're going to rewrap your thing around and go as long as you want on this side. Now what's going to happen, and I'll talk about that, what's going to happen is on one side you'll kind of see a line, so that it will be, if the blue, you'll kind of see a little line, and then it'll go into the blue a little more, just because you're knitting over the yellow. Like you'll see yellow, and then you'll kind of see a line, maybe a blue, and then, or a line of yellow, and then you'll see the blue. It's hard to describe. You'll see it, but it doesn't take that's why the sides don't look the same. It's because of doing this. You're only knitting. That's all you're going to do for, excuse me, this. And again, you're going to wrap all the way to that last peg, and you're going to knit over. You're going to knit the yellow over the top of the blue, or whatever, your first color over your second color. And do all that, knit over all the way back to the beginning. Now that blanket had no trim. I did not do any kind of trim effect along the edge. That, like I said, just was the way the yarn actually went itself for the curling. I did not do any kind of crochet trim or anything like that, really. All I do is, in terms of, like, we'll say crocheting, is when I take this off. If you've seen my video about taking off a rectangle loom, I'm going to put chains in between to make sure that this ending side of your blanket has about as much stretch as the top side of your blanket. That's all I'm doing, is wrapping it over, or knitting it over. And again, you'd probably be using 2 strands of yarn. I'm just showing you with the one to make it a little more simple to show you. But depending on the weight of your yarn, or the thickness of your yarn, will determine how many strands you would need to use at once. Most of the time you can usually get away with just 2. Okay, and then I'm going to go back through, on this side now, back to the beginning. And as for how long you want the blanket, that's going to be up to you. You're going to be working basically on the length of the blanket. So it's basically however far down from the loom it is, that's going to be the length of your blanket. Your width is what you're working on back and forth. This will be your width. It'll be opened up. So it is a little bit bigger than probably a normal baby blanket, so you can do this on different looms and just figure out what size you want, whether you want one big enough for just the car seat or stroller, or for the baby to actually lie down on. That's all we're going to do, is we're going to do this color back and forth for as many times as you want. Then when you're ready to switch colors, you're going to just cut a little tail, attach the other one to it with a knot, and then proceed to go around the loom. Now what you're going to do, if you got all that part done, is you're going to take it off the loom. And I'll show you how we do that in a second here. I'm assuming that you've already done all the colors you want, back and forth as many times as you decided you wanted to do, and just simply the E-wrap, unless you just change your mind. And now you want to take it off the loom. So what you're going to do is you're going to find the yarn that you ended with. I need to move this out of my way because it's getting tangled. Okay. And what we're going to do is use a crochet hook. You can figure out which size you need by how thick your yarn is. If you're using a thicker yarn, you're going to want a bigger crochet hook, thinner yarn, and so forth. So what you're going to do is you're going to do chains in between. Now, at the time, feel I did chains in between. I didn't know about that. Oh, excuse me. I actually just took it off the loom normal, and then one side kind of ended up being a little tighter than the other. So I would recommend doing 1 or 2 chains in between each, between each peg. So that what that would mean is you take the first loop off your peg, put it on your crochet hook, and then you would do, then you would take and you would make a loop by wrapping the yarn around and pulling it through that hole. And like I said, you may need to do 2. It all depends on the thickness of your yarn. So do 1 or 2 chains. And your best bet to see what you might need is to do a little sample. Do like maybe 10 pegs in what you want to do the blanket in, and take it off, and that'll give you an idea of how much stretch there is. Excuse me. Okay, sorry about that. I was going to go into a coughing fit and didn't want that on camera. Okay, so I did 2 chains in between, and then all you're going to do is pick up the next loop, place it on your crochet hook, and then take the back over the front, and then that one's attached. Then you're going to go ahead excuse me, and get an extra yarn. Excuse me. Okay, get out extra yarn so that you don't have to have it tight. So you got the second one on there. You're going to do your chains again. It's going to look different here because the blanket's not that long, so it's not going to look right, but you're just going to do your chains in between, 1 to 2, depending on how many you decided. I did 2. And then you're just going to pick up your next loop. So that you have 2 on there. And then take the back one over the top. This is all you're going to do all the way across the loom until you get done. Excuse me. If we were at the last one, because I want to speed this up a little bit. If I was to say this was going to be my last one right here, my last loop I was going to take off, I would, excuse me, cut a strand of this. I would give yourself maybe even like 12 inches, just so you have enough to play around with when it's off, because you can always cut it shorter later. So give yourself, like 12 inches of yarn. And if this was the last one I was going to take off, I would do my chains. I would put the last one on. I would take the back over the front. Okay, and then I would take the tail and I'd work that through. So I'd pull that through that last loop. And I'd secure it tight. And then I would do a little extra knot. Just a simple little knot at the end. And that's how I would take it off. Obviously, I can't show you the whole thing because it would take too much time. But that's all you do. And if you have any more questions about taking out the rectangle loom, I do have a separate video for that. I hope that answers any questions you have about this, how I did the first loom knitted blanket. Again, you can take any ideas that I have and modify them to what you want to do. You could change your stitch up, still changing the color the way I said, and just change your stitch up. You can do, the basic, you can do purling, which again, I have a video talking about different stitches as well that you can check out. So I hope that answered any questions. I know I've got a lot of requests for it, and I hope I didn't rush it too much, but it's pretty simple, the basic steps that you do. So I hope it works, and if you have any pictures you'd like to show me, feel free to post them on my Facebook page. I love to see what people are doing for projects. I've also updated my website, so if you haven't checked it out before, click in the link below and you can check out my new website, which also has a forum now. So if you have any questions or suggestions for people, or just reviews of different products, you can put them on there. So go check that out and have a great night or day, whenever you're watching this.